All right, so thank you everybody for joining us on our Wednesday Zoom and Learn. Today we have a guest, and Jason, I don't want to bloody the last name, so is it Kreutzer?
Kreuzter, very close.
Kreutzer, okay, close. Jason Kreutzer, broker owner of Signature Realty. And we are discussing today overcoming challenges in today's market, right? How to succeed in today's market, how to overcome those challenges in today's market, et cetera. So we want this session to be a back and forth question and answer type of session. We're not gonna share screens and put things up on the board that are flashy and stuff like that. We're just gonna have conversations. Jason's gonna lead the charge with some question and answers that we have for him that he's gonna share with you. And we hope to have dialogue with you guys as well. So this will definitely be an interacting type of session. So let's just kick off. Jason, tell us who you are, where you come from, your background, how long you've been in the business, things like that.
Absolutely. And so, right, my name is Jason Kreutzer. I'm the broker and owner of Signature Realty. This is my 12th year in real estate. And so I'm third generation real estate in my family. Both my parents before me and then my grandfather before them, got into real estate, and it's just kind of been in the blood ever since. And so I am not just a broker, but I'm an actively producing broker, which means I'm out there on the street, just like every other one of the agents out there, competing, trying to get offers accepted, marketing myself, trying to get new leads, just day-to-day operations of everything, and trying to succeed in this market, which is definitely one of the tougher ones I've had in the 12 years I've been doing this. So.
Now, have you been full-time for 12 years?
I have been. And so I initially started off in the admin side. I started off as a transaction coordinator at 18, started to learn contracts, laws, disclosures, timeframes, that type of thing. And then, I was licensed to write at 18, and started actively selling real estate by 21. So.
Nice. And now he's 26.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so that gives us some good background. Now, let's talk about challenges, because we are, as you said just now, you said this is the most challenging time you've had. And if you've been in the business that long, you came up through the crash of the market. And that was caused from the industry.
I got licensed in 2006, and so right before the short sale, bank-owned, negotiating first, second trust deeds, all that stuff. Because then, although home sales were taking longer because short sales and banks were taking longer to approve your offer, there was still inventory that existed out there. And right. So for most of you who are active, who are out there, inventory is at an absolute rock bottom right now. Average days on market for Riverside County went from 21 days to just over 12 days. And many of you know things that are move-in ready, granite, tile, paint, that type of situation are typically gone in the first 1 to 3 days, really. Yeah. There's a meme going around right now on Instagram between realtors that I think it's pretty funny, that finding houses for buyers is like finding toilet paper in May.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right, so let me ask you this. Since we're already in that kind of talking about today's market, writing offers, they get accepted in today's market, right? Because that's a big thing. You have lack of inventory. You just said if the house is anywhere close to move-in ready or just needs minor tweaks here to make it your own, and it's not hitting the market completely overpriced, it's getting multiple offers within hours of hitting the market.
Absolutely, that's correct.
What kind of suggestions can you give the group in regards to how to approach that offer that you're writing to get it accepted?
There's a couple different things. And so one, if you're an active agent, with any type of brokerage, anytime you have a relationship with any type of listing agent, that is absolutely the biggest success. And so, continuously networking with your fellow agents. And I know it's tough to do right now because there's so many things that are closed, but, going to these types of Zoom meetings, seeing each other even here, you start to recognize faces and cards as you kind of go into properties, into listings, and relationships absolutely is the biggest key for success in order to get an offer accepted. If you do not have some sort of relationship with the listing agent, I have 3 buyers in escrow right now. All 3 buyers had to write an offer $10,000 to $15,000 over list price just to get a second look. And what's unfortunate is these are homes that I may not even think would necessarily appraise for that amount, but because of the competition of the fellow realtors and the fellow buyers that are out there, who are in essence driving the price up in order to benefit that seller, it is taking writing offers 10 to 15,000 over just to even get a look to be considered in the top 2 or 3 of the 15 offers they're typically receiving on properties right now. So.
Yeah, and let's talk about that, because we're seeing that happen. Obviously, with lack of inventory, we see that happen immediately, because it's like, how many offers do you have? Well, we already have 4. We have a few more that's scheduled to come in. And these are questions to, say, the listing agent. And, of course, with multiple offers like that, the first thing that goes through someone's head is, we need to come in strong, right? We need to come in strong financially, et cetera. However, and I had this conversation with an agent on Friday. Matter of fact, it's funny. We'll back up, 2 minutes. You said build the relationships with agents. Well, I had an agent that put in an offer with a listing agent that typically comes on to one of the Zooms that I put on. And she put in an offer. She called the listing agent and said, hey, we haven't physically met, but we met during the weekly Valley Pitch Zoom. And she said, oh, well, when they started talking, instantly I got a call from that listing agent, because I was the common denominator between the two, right? And I got asked, like, hey, what do you know about this agent, blah, 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 all this stuff, right? Right now, agents come out of the woodworks. I mean, you're getting tons of agents from out of the area that are putting in offers as well. And just because it's the highest priced offer doesn't mean that it's the strongest offer.
That is correct. That is correct.
The financing plays a part, how much they're coming down with, how much money they have in the bank. Let's be honest, if it doesn't appraise, I've seen more and more verbiage hitting contracts of like gap coverage, right? Having agents push back and do a multi-counter or what have you, or a single counter even, and say, willing to accept price of X as long as buyer's willing to cover up to, $10,000 in gap of appraised value, not to exceed, the contract price type of thing. And we're obviously seeing more and more of that, and really not to play games, but as a listing agent side is to protect that seller, because it's easy for somebody to offer you 20,000 over asking price with the notion that it's probably not going to appraise at that. And then you're back to negotiating, right? So the negotiations are just held up front more so versus having to go through the hassle of, okay, it came in 10,000 under what the written value was. They came up 15 grand. So really now we're only 5,000 over. And then you got to go back and forth and be like, well, we had other offers higher. Let's see if they can come in with more. So they're just basically putting that up front with gap coverage and stuff in a lot of times. Are you seeing a lot of that?
One of the 3 buyers that I have in escrow right now, we wrote in the initial offer, buyer will cover up to $5,000 of appraised difference compared to the property. And so, yes, I am seeing that more and more. And so it's education on both sides, educating your buyer that, hey, a $5,000 difference could literally win you the home. Also on the same side as educating your sellers that even if we go on the market at 350, 375, and even if I get you an offer at 450, we still have to appraise for that. And so even though they get very excited and, sometimes upset because appraised values may not come in exactly where one of my appraisals literally today that I'm working on, negotiating with the listing agent, came in $61,000 short. But that's just, again, where the market is, where we had to kind of offer. They were at 529. We had to offer 546 in order to get it accepted, and the appraisal still came in absolutely crazy on it. So it's education on both sides to your sellers that, hey, offers are going to be crazy right now, but we have to keep our expectations realistic, and on buyers who have a little bit of cash, you're obviously trying to get them the best deal possible. The best deal possible is list price and hopefully not $20,000 over. And again, that's just the market we're in today. What we were talking about January and February, completely different.
So let's before we, because I want to move off of this subject and onto appraisals in a second, but before we get off of that, how to make the offer strong, how to try and get that offer accepted. And again, we mentioned that the highest price isn't always the best offer. Sometimes the strongest offer with the highest price is the best offer. And there are little things that you can do to make it come across as a stronger offer, right? So here are things that I've seen, and I'd like you to share what you've seen as well. I've seen buyers paying for, the buyer's agent, I should say, or the buyer paying for the home warranty instead of asking the seller to pay for that. We've seen the buyer's side covering termite and not requesting the termite clearance from the seller. And in most cases, the buyer still does the termite clearance. They just pay for it themselves. And then obviously they're taking on responsibility moving forward if there's stuff that comes back. And taking that that financial burden off of what the seller typically would have, right? Both of those are strong because you're talking between $500 and $700 for a home warranty. You're also talking, okay, $99 for the termite clearance, but if something were to come back, then that could range anywhere from $500 to $4,000 on average as well. So those two things, dollar amount wise, mean something to the seller, right? Because it's something they don't have to come out and pay. Again, we've seen the gap coverage and buyers coming in with gap coverage, and with the notion that writing it correctly to where gap coverage, we're willing to come in with X, say 5,000, right? Not to exceed contract price, right? Obviously, they were willing to come into the contract price because that's what they offered. Right, so, right. They're willing to pay.
Qualified for the payment, wants to pay it, just fingers crossed it appraises.
Right, but let's say it comes back 3,000 under, then they're only liable for that 3,000, right?
Correct.
Let's say it comes in 10,000 under and it got accepted. Now they're meeting halfway, right? So, I mean, these are other things that could portray your offer as being stronger. And let's say that somebody comes in $20,000 over asking price, but they're asking for home warranty, they're asking for termite clearance, they're asking for basically all the normal stuff, right? And then you have somebody that comes in 15,000 over asking, but they're waiving the appraisal, or I mean, not the appraisal, they're waiving the termite, or they're willing to put it on the buyer's side. They're, maybe picking up the home warranty or something like that. That's financial burden as well. And things like that. And they look at it and like, well, this person's willing to do X, Y, and Z, and there's only a $5,000 difference. And financially, they're coming in with X, and they seem to be strong, financially. Their FICO scores and everything are in play. They may go for that one that's 5,000 less because in the notion, it's a stronger offer, right? Potentially. So just because it's the highest price doesn't mean you're going to get it. I mean, I'll be honest. I've had conversations with a lot of agents that all in all said and done find out that they were the highest offer, but it was not accepted.
That's correct. And you're seeing that more and more. I think the type of buyer has played the biggest, holds the most weight. Cash is still king. I mean, they're not getting it for any cheaper than a buyer who's getting a loan, but they're going to go with the cash offer before they go with somebody who's getting a loan. A
Sure.
conventional putting down, even 5, 10, 20% is going to be better than any type of FHA offer, mainly because the appraisals for those types of properties, how they stick to the property for up to 6 months. A lot of sellers are trying to go with the conventional offer first because they don't want to be stuck at any particular price initially. And so even if it's, not a higher price, they'll go with a conventional offer with somebody who's putting more down, or just the fact that the appraisal doesn't stick to the property is a big factor. The other big thing that I've started incorporating into my contracts as of last year are the family cover letters. Taking cover letters, adding them to the offers with photos of the clients and their family members, sometimes their dogs, whatever it may be. I have had listing agents tell me it was the letter that won the deal between 2 or 3 offers. And so, and it's just as a buyer's agent, you're doing anything you can to give your client just that little bit of edge over the competition. And it just shows extra time and effort and consideration that you're kind of putting into, both your client and the overall offer as you're presenting to the seller, because we're not allowed to, really present sellers or present offers to sellers in the way we used to once upon a time.
Right. And you have to market your client, I mean, as a buyer's agent, you have to market your client, and that's just not the financials and paperwork, most people care who's going to live in their home afterwards. Like in the back of their head, they care. Yes, they want to sell it. Yes, they want to get top dollar for it. All that kind of stuff plays a part. But trust me, most of them are friends with their surrounding neighbors. Very few are moving because they hate their neighbors. You'll come across that one in a few, yes, but most are moving and they like the neighbors around them and they want to do right by them as well because they're friends with them. All right,
Absolutely.
let's stay on that appraisal topic. And appraisals have been all over the board. It's kind of weird. I've seen properties come in 15,000 over asking price and appraise at value. I've seen properties come in 15,000 over asking price and actually appraise 3,000 above that. And yet we've seen offers come in 10,000 over asking price and come in 10,000 under that, right? They're all over the board. And I've also seen a lot of outside area appraisers coming into the area to appraise homes. A lot of fishy stuff going on there because the lender's out of the area, which should not play a part, but it obviously did. Because ultimately, if it went through the companies that scheduled the appraisal, they would have scheduled it with an appraiser that was closer to the property, which there are tons of. But yet, i.e. a LA appraiser comes into Temecula, Murrieta, Riverside, and drives 2 hours to do that appraisal, right? So we see a lot of things with appraisal stuff. So how to avoid appraisal issues? Let's talk that.
And so the big thing is knowing your loan product and what type of appraisal you're going to be getting. And so, especially with FHA, not only does the buyer have to qualify for the payment itself, but the home has to qualify or meet a certain FHA standard. And it's tough because what one FHA appraiser considers a standard is not what every appraiser considers a standard. And so, most of the time it's, things that your buyers want in a first-time home anyway. No broken windows, the heater has to work, oven's working, air conditioner's working, no major roof leaks or apparent health or safety type issues. So as you're going into these types of properties, you want to be, carpet and paint, you'll walk by every single time. But if you're starting to see, actual health or safety type issues with the property, and you're an FHA buyer or a VA buyer, then you want to, sometimes I've been in contract and the seller, and there's been certain things that I've been able to identify before an appraiser gets there that we correct before the appraiser gets there, because we don't want the appraiser getting there, marking the item as something they need to come back and check. And so you're right, it's just knowing what type of loan you're going to have and what type of standard the property needs to be is the biggest thing.
If it was conventional, does it have to have heat?
Say that again, Tracy.
AC? If it was a conventional loan, does it have to have heat?
If it's an owner occupied, less, 10% or less, so 5% conventional owner occupied, typically the appraiser is going to want heat. They're not going to care as much about the air conditioning, but they are heater and oven or for any owner occupied low percent down, they're going to want.
All right. And so the other thing too, let's back up. You said, they're not going to be as concerned with like carpet and paint. Now that he means interior stuff, right? Scuffed walls, things like that. The walls need to be painted. That's not going to be an issue. Where paint would be an issue for like the FHA side and stuff like that, correct me if I'm wrong, is the chipping paint outside. The fascia, the paint is literally chipping off and falling to the ground, stuff like that. Things like that would more than likely get called out from that FHA appraiser.
I get hit on peeling paint more than any other item on an FHA appraisal. I mean, I've had some FHA appraisers come in with blinders with a red tagged heater and pass the property, but they caught the chipping paint on the back fence. That's not even attached to the home. It's just
right.
An exterior fence line where they found some chipping paint and they want that whole thing scraped and repainted. And so, yes, on FHA, peeling paint is one of my biggest things that I see happening more often than not. Other little things to just kind of, if you have a property and you're unsure if it's going to appraise, I typically attend all of my appraisals, both buyers and seller side, because right now there's only, typically one or two reasons why properties are falling out of escrow, and it is the appraisal and it is the home inspection. So if you're there or present or able to solve, certain situations on the spot while those people are there, you're going to have a much easier and smoother transaction. So showing up to the property with comps for the appraiser, with a small list of upgrades that the seller has recently done to the home, to just show additional value of why your property is better than some other ones, because they're not going inside other homes, for their appraisals. They're doing drive-by appraisals, snapping a photo of the outside and relying on the MLS pictures of that agent of whatever they took on the inside. And so, being as prepared as possible when you meet the appraiser is definitely a big help as well, too.
Yeah, and I would say is, I've seen more so than not in the conversations I've had with, listing agents that I work with is, more and more lenders from out of the area representing some of these buyers. And, you don't know them, you don't know the company, and that, they've been burned in the last few months, more so than not, in regards to lenders saying they can do stuff and they can't. And so now they're doing cross quals and stuff to make sure that that buyer is a strong, financially sound buyer. I would highly recommend that if the lender is not a local lender and it is from out of the area, that you definitely request that that appraiser be from the area. Because you will find a lot of times when they schedule an appraisal, and let's say the lender's from Orange County, and this is for Riverside County, and they schedule it, and it's a appraiser from Orange County, and then you get wind that it's an out-of-area appraiser, and you're like, no, I want a local appraiser. A lot of times they charge to switch it, and I've heard that a handful of times as well. So up front, if you know the lender is not local to that area, make sure you're requesting that, hey, when that lender schedules that appraiser to come out, I want a local appraiser. There are plenty for any type of loans out there, whether it's VA, FHA, conventional, there's plenty in the area. And for somebody to drive 2 hours that isn't familiar with the area to appraise the area, that's tough. It does definitely help if they are familiar with the area and they've appraised multiple houses in the area. because they're constantly watching the value and seeing it firsthand.
Absolutely, and you'll see if you work a particular area often and you attend appraisals like I do. I run into a lot of the same appraisers sometimes.
Right.
And again, it's we're in a relationship business. So the more people you meet, the more relationships you build, the more times you see a certain individual. I'm not saying that that's going to sway an appraiser's opinion about a property or value for a property, but all that stuff doesn't hurt in any situation. And so the more relationships you can build on, just because you might turn into a relationship where you just have a question of whether or not this is going to be called out or something, and now you have an actual appraiser's opinion about a particular matter. It just makes you stronger as a realtor yourself too.
And let's be honest, every agent, regardless how long you've been doing this, forgets to look for carbon monoxide detector or what have you on the wall. And next thing you know, the appraiser's out there and it's like, where's the carbon monoxide? And you're like, ugh. If you go out there and you meet these appraisers and you've seen them multiple times and they get to know your face and know you, you'd be surprised, but some of them will be like, hey, I'm going to be here for 30 minutes, run and grab one. Or, I need it in there, so shoot me a picture type of thing. So, you have to get out and meet these people, because you are right. You'd be surprised, but I know a handful of appraisers, and out of them, a couple of them only do very small radiuses of where they live, like 1 to 2 zip code type of radius. They don't leave that, and they get enough volume every day to stay busy in that small area. So, ultimately, if you were somebody who sold within the same areas over and over or what have you, you'd probably get to know some of these appraisers pretty quick. So, all right. Let's talk about inventory a little bit more. Inventory levels right now, we're hovering in the teens for most areas, okay? So, and what I mean in the teens, I mean like you pick the area, it could be anywhere between 8 days and 20 days of inventory, okay? Anywhere in Riverside County. So if you pick specific cities, you're gonna see the fluctuations. For instance, Temecula, say 20 days versus Moreno Valley where you have 8 days. Inventory levels are as low as they've been. And, perfect. I put it in perspective like this. This time of year in Temecula, we typically have about 280, 290 single family residents for sale. All price points, single family only. Take condos, manufactured on land, all that out of the plate, just single family, about 280, 290 homes. Currently, we have about 150 to 160. And when you look at the amount of homes going pending in 30 days, there's current pending right now in Temecula, there's a little over 325 homes pending. And of those, half of them went pending in 10 days or less. Okay, so that paints a picture right there, right? When you have 300 homes in the last 30 days go pending, but 156 of those went pending in 10 days or less. And most of those were 5 days or less, really, when you look at those 10 days. That means, priced right and in decent shape is moving very quickly. We have tons of buyers because interest rates are at an all-time low and buying power is an all-time high. So buyers that couldn't quite afford what they needed 6 months ago potentially can afford it now at a lower interest rate, as long as the price point warrants it. So let's talk inventory.
And so, right, everything you said was an absolute truth and fact of today's market. And as agents, you need to be constantly checking these volumes and these and in the markets that you're working, because you're expected to be the local expert. And so, you want to be running searches in the zip codes in the cities that you're working actively. And and it's not, it's very simple stuff that you can do with our Realtor CRMLS tools, just running searches in the zip codes or cities, comparing active versus pendings, looking at what homes are selling for versus what they got listed for, and then overall just living and breathing in and speaking to agents. I think right now it's funny because how often we're on our phone. It is tough to get busy listing agents to answer their phone at all right now. And so all you can do is submit and pray for the best, and start talking to their assistants or start talking to whatever you can, to try to get an idea of any edge you can on any types of properties coming onto the market, because the buyers are plentiful right now, especially if you're doing just some basic marketing that exists out there. And so getting your offer accepted because of this inventory is the issue for sure.
With inventory so low, I mean, I would suggest that every agent set up an auto drip for themselves in the zip codes, in the specific zip codes that you want to work, or that surrounding where you want to work, to where it alerts you twice a day of any new listings or changes to listings for a particular criteria or a particular price point, which is hopefully that price point in which your buyers typically are working in. Because if you set it up to come AM and PM, and you get it via email, right, then you don't have to log on to the MLS, say, all the time, but you're still going to get alerted when things hit. So if somebody comes in at 10 a.m. and puts something in there, you're going to get it in the afternoon, and vice versa, just to keep you up to date. Because, to be honest, if you picked a couple zip codes in between certain price points, and let's just call a price point of 400,000 to 550,000 in the Temecula-Murrieta area, that's your average and lower end price point. You're not going to have that many that hit the market fresh on a daily basis that meet the criteria in which you put in, regardless if it's just 3+, 2+ between that price point. So to me, I would just say set up yourself a drip so that you're at least alerted if you didn't have time to log in and see, okay, what freshly hit today in the afternoon, and then of course first thing in the morning as well. That's just kind of like a backup to keep you alerted. Regardless if you're looking for it for a buyer or not, you need to know what's going on in the area.
Absolutely. And it's tough because I don't know, I have about 25 active buyers in my CRMLS getting automatic emails right now. And so of course I get CC'd on those emails, but I'm not looking at 25 different emails about what properties came up. I have, so I work Wildemar and like Elsinore a lot. And so a lot of my price points are in that, 300 to 450 type of range. And so so my particular community that I live in, I set up a search just for that community. So anytime something comes on or off or pending, I want to know about it. So I can try to, just have that slight edge over the competition. But I also have other basic searches set up for stick built and manufactured on land type properties. And so that way when they come in, because right now in my area, there's only maybe 5 to 10 properties a day, if I'm lucky, that come onto the market.
Right.
And so I can look at those. I can quickly assess, which ones I think would fit for each particular buyer, and or, 2 of them fit 3 of my buyer searches,
Right.
And it'll prompt me to reach out to them to say, hey, did you see this particular property that came on? And buyers are educating themselves through consumer tools like Zillow and Writin and that type of thing. They have as many searches as you set up for them. They have a search set up in every single one of those platforms as well too. And so homes that they're favoriting or looking at, I mean, they're going from active to pending in that 1 week period, just like we're seeing. And so, luckily, that has been a good education tool for buyers and getting them off the fence that, homes that I show you this weekend are not going to be there Monday or Tuesday because they just received 5 offers over the weekend and now they're into escrow. So it's definitely, important to keep yourself ahead of it as much as possible.
Or let's say that you do work Wildemar, or you do work, just Murrieta for the most part. set up a search just for every single new listing to hit the market. Don't put any criteria in. Don't put bedrooms, bath. Don't even put price point, or just put under a certain price point, like say under 700, unless you work with a lot of buyers above that, just so that it automatically comes to your email every morning of all the new listings. And then if you have time, you log in, great, you had time. But if something came up, you could look at it on the go. So it's kind of your backup to be able to stay addressed on the market and what just freshly hit the market. And then that way you see everything, the good, the bad, the ugly, versus just, say bedroom criterias that you put in, bathroom criterias and price point, et cetera, which then narrows it down a little bit. So, you can also set that up as well. That and the buyer pool, be very familiar with your buyer pool in that area. I mean, you work Lake Elsinore and Canyon Hills and stuff like that, Wildemar, and you're looking at that 300 to 450 kind of price point. Well, guys, 300 to 450, that buyer pool is the biggest buyer pool that we have, right?
Everybody qualifies. Everybody qualifies for it.
Yeah, right? Not everybody, but yeah. And then, as you go up, 450 to 550, that buyer pool shrinks a little bit, right? 550 to 7 shrinks even more. 7 and above, very small buyer pool, right? So when, as a buyer's agent, and I want to jump into marketing a little bit, because as a buyer's agent, if you don't have a lot of listings and you're focused on buyers right now to just kind of get the ball rolling and have work out there, if you're focused on that 300 to 450, yeah, you're going to be getting 12 to 20 offers on that property if it's in decent shape and priced right, right? But when you move up to 400 to 450, they're still going to get multiple offers, but it will probably be between, 3 and 8 within that first 24, 48 hours if it's priced right and in good shape. Now let's move up to 550 and above, less buyer pool, less amount of offers coming in, et cetera. So, you want to try and be more competitive, maybe look at the higher price point buyer, try and market yourself to a higher price point buyer, and get away from that 300 to 500 mark and get above the 500 mark. And you have a better opportunity of being competitive with a smaller buyer pool than that lower financial demographic. So let's talk that. Jason, how about marketing? Like, let's say, like right now, you already said that you focus on a particular area is a good portion of your business, right? And it's probably because you live within that area, that area, and that's where your clientele is. But I also know you do business outside of that area. But let's say you wanted to break out outside that area and you wanted to move from that average buyer pool of 300 to 450,000 and go to that 500 to 700,000 buyer pool, right? What would be your recommendations for marketing?
And so looking at the market and looking at the big agents and the big teams and really any realtor who has not been in the business 20 plus years and their phone is just ringing off the hook type of situation. And so I am a huge fan of electronic marketing. And so Zillow leads, Realtor.com leads, Yelp.com. I think the only one I haven't tried yet is Bold leads. And so I've tried all the homes.com. So I am absolutely a big fan of, internet and those technological type of leads. And so, before coronavirus, if you want to try to work in a higher price neighborhood, start doing open houses in that neighborhood, start door knocking in that neighborhood. I know a lot of those types of things have disappeared in just the last 3 months, but they are going to come back in some way. And so maybe mailers are going to start becoming a bigger hit again. The biggest thing for the agents who I know were successful on the cold calling, on the door knocking, is just their consistency. I mean, literally hitting the street 2 to 3 times a week, 3-4 hour type days. It was just getting out there and doing it. And so the biggest thing is whatever you're going to do, be consistent in that. And then, so for me, who, markets in the Lake Elsinore, Wildemar zip codes right now, if I wanted to try to break into Temecula, Murrieta, I don't know an agent who's doing 20 plus deals who's not spending $1,000 to $1,500 a month on their marketing. And so it is an investment. your business, because your real estate is your business. And so, you just got to make that investment in yourself, have faith, and be consistent on your follow-up. Make sure you have good tools in place, specifically a CRM that's going to match the type of marketing that you're going to be doing, and then just literally follow up. And so for me, if I wanted to get into Temecula, I know my ad space would potentially double or triple trying to get into those zip codes, which would be a tough pill to swallow for those first 3 to 6 months. But from my experience of these leads is that they do come, and you do start to build a pipeline very quickly. And so once you have that pipeline of people going, they say the $1 million listing, the hardest one to get is your first one. After you get the first one, the neighbors, they see the sign up, you start blanket marketing that particular area with just that one listing, and kind of more grow off of that. And so, it's tough to get your foot in the door on some of those things. But once you're in, typically you start to have success at that level and that platform from there.
Yeah, so talking with agents, and I've talked with 2 particular top agent team leads in California in the last 6 months, and specifically in regards to farming, right? One has over a 32,000 house farm right now. Now, it didn't start that way, right? It started with a 250 house farm and gradually grew. But I asked, I said, how do you take a 250 house farm and grow it to a 32,000 house farm in 2 years? And the answer was this: consistency, right? A lot of people think, oh, I'll farm that 250 home farm once a month. That's not consistent enough. And so I said, okay, so when you say consistency, how consistent do you have to be? And he says, if you're not willing to farm the farm, whatever that farm may be, 250, 500, whatever it is, if you're not capable or willing to do it every week for at least 8 weeks, then you'll never see anything from the farm in most cases. It'll be like a needle in a haystack.
So how
eventually,
is he farming 32,000 homes? Is he just doing mailers, or is he hiring people to actually do door hangers and things?
No, so everything is mailed to the house now. In the 32,000 house farm, he sends a newspaper, which is branded to him and his team. It's a 8-page newspaper that is all real estate related and has some local vendor stuff in it, community involvement stuff, things like that. They get a paper once a month. They get mailers, which are different each week, but in the other 3 to 4 weeks, they're getting proof of production mailers. They're getting, here's what just sold mailers. They're getting, just listed, just sold type of mailers, right? So it alternates, and then the data that's on it obviously updates every time it goes out, but they're getting hit on every single week, right? However, the farm alone did 1.78 million in GCI last year. So is it worth it? Yeah, it is. For $1.7 million GCI, it's absolutely worth it. Did he have to work the farm to get it there? Yeah, he started at 250 homes, got nothing from it for months. And then gradually he got something, and every time he got something, that farm expanded. And it was the notion of the long-term goal versus the right now goal, right? If you need the right now goal, get out and hit the streets, walk your farms, meet people, talk to people. I always say is right now with COVID, there's nothing holding you back from walking the farm. You don't have to door knock. Go walk it on a Saturday morning between 10 and 2 and see how many people are doing yard work. Okay? And just go walk it. And as you see somebody out, talk to them. Or you go walk it between 3 and 6 p.m. That's when most people on the weekends are out walking their dogs. And when you see people, talk to them, right? You don't have to be stuck to door knock during COVID. The other thing is, out of those, large teams, 250 to 500 transactions a year, okay? Every single one of them said the same thing. You can talk to almost any agent out there, they'll probably tell you the same thing, is they all had, when they started to grow their business, a certain percentage that they said, I'm going to put this percentage straight back into marketing and fueling the fire. And usually the percentage that I hear for the first 5 years is 20%, or somewhere close to that. I've heard 25, I've heard 15, but the average is about 20%. And it's like, you have to be willing to look at it and say, I just made a $10,000 commission and I'm taking 2,000 of it and putting it into my marketing budget in a separate account that is, I'm not touching. That's there to fuel the fire. And you're using that money to fuel the fire, whether that's farming, whether that's purchasing Zillow leads and stuff like that, if that's your thing, whether it's running ads online, whether it's, whatever it may be, in investing into your systems that are going to help generate leads, right? You have to be willing to fuel the fire. And if you're doing one-off sales every few months and you can't afford to pull that money to do it, you need to find an alternative way of bringing financial money into yourself so that you can fuel the fire and get out from underneath it. Does that make sense? If real estate's your sole income and you struggle to get the commission to keep your livelihood afloat and keep a roof over your head, you have to sit and ultimately look at it and say, one, can I do it? Am I willing to do it? And two, find a way to financially subsidize yourself. If that means, a secondary little, side hustle or what have you that generates a few $100s a month, and that few $100s helps fuel the fire for your real estate business, then you may need to look that way until you can get that fire burning, right? Because we all know that you can throw money out, but before you see money come back in, it's going to usually be at least a couple months. Saying that you land a buyer or land a listing, you still got to close it, right? So, ultimately is at one point or another for somebody to go from a deal every couple months and doing 6 to 10 deals a year to doing multiple deals a month consistently throughout the year, they had to get to a point where they consistently were fueling the fire so that continued. And not be like, oh, I got 2 in escrow and back off. Like, it's in escrow, I don't pay attention to it. I need to keep moving forward and fuel the fire, right?
And the big thing is we are not reinventing the wheel. I mean,
no.
These marketing tactics already exist out there. And so, start talking to your fellow agents who are doing the type of production that you want to do, and just get some insight of kind of how they got started on that particular, because there's strategies to every type of marketing that you want to do out there. And so if you have never done a farm before, talk to your title reps about how to get addresses and, because there's 2 different types of things. You're either farming a particular neighborhood of, 800 to 1,000 homes. That's it. Just that neighborhood. That's all I want to sell, particularly or listing or whatever. Or you go the other way with the number strategy where you pick a particular city or a couple different zip codes, and you give your title rep certain criteria. The average time we know as realtors that a seller lives in a home is no longer 30 years, it's 3 to 7. And so when you're setting up, your farm of, hey, the market's as hot as it can be, and now is the time to list your home, you want to be targeting you want to be targeting clients who have been in their home, that 3 to 7 year mark, because those are people who are getting ready to step up, step down, adjust their price point one way or another. And for us, it's a numbers game. The more numbers you have, the higher your percentages can be. But doing nothing will get you nothing back at the same time.
Correct. And doing something today and not doing something for 2 weeks before you do it again, again, you're going to be spinning your wheels. It's almost like everything you just did right now was all for nothing, unless there's follow-up consistently all the way through. Farming is, I tell agents I work with straight out. From a title perspective, I always ask them, Are you willing to be consistent and send out farms every week? No. If you're going to send it out every 2 weeks, twice a month, once a month, I hope you're able to do it for a year, right? Financially, because you're probably not going to get the phone ringing from that, right? There are a lot of different tactics out there, and there's not one way to go about it, right? Because everybody's different. So what Jason just said hit kind of home is I try and find out, like, what are you willing to do consistently, right? Because there's some agents that are scared of rejection. So therefore, picking up the phone and cold calling stuff is not an option, right? Door knocking, not an option. Mailers to the home sometimes, not an option, because they literally get crushed from rejection, right? So when things don't happen fast enough, they lose hope, they stop doing it. You have to find a way of marketing yourself that you are comfortable doing. If that's running phones and you're comfortable on the phones, then great. I have agents that consistently get 2 to 3 listings or buyers every single month by running phones. And there are programs out there and things like that to kind of automate a lot of that. I have some that run mailers consistently, and they started with a very small farm of like 150 homes, so that they can afford to be consistent every single week and then be involved. And it's usually involved within the community in which you live, so that you have a pretty good idea of some of those neighbors as well. I have some that do online lead generation and pay for ads. Then you better have a very good follow-up system, right? Because you can't afford to be the one every time your phone dings to go, oh, I got to send a text. I got to send an email. Oh, I got to remember to follow up with an email. Oh, I got to call them. Because you got to hit on people now 21 times, not 8 in a sales process, especially when it's an internet lead, because most people, and you can probably alert to this, go on and search things on the internet, i.e., I'm looking for a new car because I have 140,000 miles on my car, so I start researching stuff online. Well, guess what? Everybody gets that information because I'm searching that stuff online, and now all of a sudden that's all I see in front of me. But it takes me 6 months before I end up buying a car, right? It's the same thing with a house. People are like, yeah, I'm thinking about moving. So they start looking. Oh, rentals are high. How much can I afford? So it starts that process of when you get a ding, right? A lead, a potential lead. But an internet lead usually is 6-12 months out, right? So some of this stuff, like Jason mentioned, Zillow, Realtor.com, Yelp, they have constant people coming back into their system over and over, and they can determine whether or not it's a first hit. They're 6-12 months out probably, and then they hit again, like, okay, the time frame starts to come down until it's a hot lead, and they get them on the phone, or you get them on the phone. But ultimately, that doesn't mean that they're ready to buy right now, right? So their follow-up, the money's in the follow-up then, right? So, okay, you talk to them one time, you have to be the squeaky wheel, because why? They're back online looking, and somebody else is going to get that lead somewhere else. So don't think you're the only one that's going to be talking to them. You have to constantly be adding value to them once you have them on the hook. And so if you don't have a system in place, if you don't have a CRM in place, you need one. If you don't have a CRM, you need to log on the MLS and get Lion's Desk for free because you belong to the CRMLS. Bare minimum, that will allow you to set up email drips, text drips, and you'd be able to do a lot of things in automation to where you can then be in front of somebody multiple times a day without you having to physically do it. And that's the key. Automate 80 to 90% of the little stuff of nurturing the lead and spend 10% closing them, right? But you have to have a system no matter what you choose to do, whether it's a farm, whether it's online ads, whether it's Zillow, Realtor, Yelp, any of that stuff, whether it's making the phone calls, whatever it is that you are drawing those leads in from, you need to have a follow-up system. If you don't, you need to focus on a system, okay, that will set you up on drips, that will do that, which will track every time somebody comes back into your system. Because without it, man, you are behind the 8 ball of everybody else out there that is making it work. Because they have systems in place that alert them when a potential buyer comes back into their system to look, or they put advertisements out there and it generates a listing appointment because somebody saw something that added value to them and they were looking at potentially knowing what their house is worth. You have to have things in
so
place.
many of them that exist out there, and so and there's demos and there's salespeople who all they want to do is show you why their version is better than this version, and a lot of them are fairly inexpensive. I mean, I use Top Producers, my CRM, and I think it's
20 bucks a month.
Yeah, 25 bucks a month, something like that, and I can get the extra drip campaign, something like that. I mean, it's went. And so, again, technological leads. And so I'm paying for them. They're coming in. I started realizing very quick, because initially I just had a Google spreadsheet set up, and I realized that people were slipping through the cracks very quickly, and that I was not being my best realtor on follow-ups and allowing the programs that exist around me to assist me. And your CRM is your book of business. When lawyers and doctors, and when they sell their practices, they're selling their customer list, and so your CRM is your customer list that you need to be updating, phone numbers, emails, and even on past clients. I'm a big fan of Brian Buffini as well too, as far as the real estate gurus out there, and watching some of the videos that they take of consumers of do you own a home? Yes. Did you like your realtor? Yes. Do you know his name? No, because they stopped calling him, right after close. People are very, he describes it as transactional mindset as opposed to a relationship mindset. And so I wanted to find a CRM that kept that relationship type mindset going through. So.
Yeah. And I mean, we can go on and on about this aspect of the business, probably as an entire class. But I would say this, and here's what we'll leave you with is this. Jason uses listing to leads. It's 25 bucks a month. If you have a website and that website has a direct feed to the MLS where they can search properties, then great. You need a good CRM. The two best CRMs that I've used in the past that I would recommend that don't break the bank is LionDesk, that's now free through the CRMLS as of January, and Follow Up Boss, which is about 60 bucks a month for a single user. Okay. Both of them allow you to text through the system. Both of them allow you to call through the system, meaning every time you call, your call log is tracked. Every time you text, it's tracked under that client. It keeps in the note section so that you don't have to remember like, oh, what was my last conversation with them? And you set up a task for a follow-up text or call, et cetera. And when you open it up, it's there, right? If you don't have a website, I would recommend listing to leads, because 25 bucks a month, it's going to give you a built-in CRM. It's going to give you a website. It's going to give you the tools to do capture pages and landing pages and all the other stuff that will allow you to help yourself generate leads, right? And that's the name of the game. If you are not prospecting a good portion of your day, it's going to be a long road. You have to put aside prospecting, and you have to hold yourself accountable to it. So that's the last piece. We say consistency. I would say the follow-up to that is accountability, right? Because you usually don't have somebody that's forcing you to do it unless you're a buyer's agent on a team or something like that, where you're being watched to perform. There's nobody holding you accountable because you're an independent contractor, and that broker is probably not like, hey, Marie or Tracy or Brenda, et cetera, you guys need to go do something today, right? So you have to hold yourself accountable to do the tasks in which you need to do to drive your business. And my suggestion is, if you're not prospecting on a daily basis, then you need to pencil in on your calendar and hold yourself accountable to at least prospecting a couple hours a day, minimum. I know agents that prospect 5 hours a day. I know agents that prospect 2 hours a day. And I know agents that don't prospect at all on a daily basis. They do it as it comes. But guess what? The ones that are consistently closing deals are prospecting every single day. Okay. So you got to be consistent in whichever avenue you choose to market. You got to be consistent. If Jason decided, oh, I'm going to throw $1,500 or $2,000 or $5,000 at Zillow, that's good for this month. And then he goes, I didn't get a lead, and he doesn't do it next month, he'll never know the true value of whether or not it will work or not, right? So when I'm sure that when he decided to do one type of lead generation or another, he committed to doing it for at least a duration of time to see what the ROI would be on it, and then decided whether or not to move forward, double down, or back away, right?
And absolutely. And for, all those technological lead type programs, they typically require a 6-month contract, because they know you need to see, you need to, that 6 months to be consistent and to see the actual results of what you're spending in. And that's exactly right. I mean, I started off at $250 in a terrible zip code and whatnot. And the first couple months were not super successful, and I was, debating, and month 4, I put 5 deals into escrow. And I mean, it was a light bulb, boom, went off in my head at that moment that I need to be doing this and consistently. And so, and I'm now comfortably spending $1,500 on just Zillow leads coming in. And again, and I'm only one person. I'm not a huge team. I don't want to, it all sounds wonderful to do 300 deals a year and things like that, but I want to be successful myself, and I rely on myself, and you need to rely on yourself and invest in yourself, because it's a big deal. So, and
a lot of times skin in the game gives you a swift kick in the ass, right? I mean, you're paying $1,500 a month. Are you gonna, when the phone dings, are you not gonna look at it, or are you gonna look at it?
I got special ringer set up. I got special everything set up. I mean, yeah, when the phone goes off, I'm there, and I'm very aware.
Right. And I think the difference is you can run some free ads and post some free ads on social media and generate some leads that come in and ding your phone, etc. And ultimately, I don't think you're going to give them the same effort as you are when you're paying $1,500 to generate some leads, especially when that $1,500 may only generate 6 to 10 leads in that month.
Right.
That is a big deal. Every single one of those leads is like dire straight, right? Versus the phone dinging 3 or 4 times a day with, something that costs you $5 a day to generate or what have you. We're talking 2 different types of leads, even though they both are internet-driven technology leads. They are definitely too far and few between.
And I try to track where a lot of my leads come from, but I've been so consistent on so many things as far as, before COVID, I'm a big fan of open houses. I did one a month solid. How I would prepare for open houses, I drop flyers off to the neighborhood, the Friday before my actual open house as well too. Sign calls, making sure your post is out there looking great, making sure the flyer box is full, just those little things, and being consistent on top of everything. And then the phone rings. It's not just Zillow. It's my constant marketing on all the little things as well too. And so you never know exactly where your next deal is going to come from. You just know you got to stay consistent on everything, and results will happen.
Correct. All right. The only other thing, and we won't really get into it because we've kind of gotten into our time limit here that I'd like to keep things at. We were going to talk COVID-19 factors and then things like that. I think we'll bypass the COVID-19 factors. We covered some of them and what we talked about, and everybody's kind of been living it. So I think we're good there. But I will do this. Let's open it up for any questions at this time that anybody has. And if they want to ask the questions, great. If we've answered them, then that's fine too. But if you do have any questions, feel free to unmute yourself and go ahead and, ask away. No, I can call on people. I'm good at that. So Tracy, Marie, Brenda, Alicia, Annie, you guys have any questions in regards to what we just covered right now?
No.
No, I'm good. This was great. Thank you so much, Jason.
Of course, of course. And if you guys have questions about any types of marketing or anything like that, Annie, Tommy, they have my contact information. I'm happy to pass it out. That's no problem at all. And I love bouncing ideas off of people. I love hearing new ideas because no matter what you're going to do in marketing, there's always a strategy that you can apply to it in order to try to maximize your results. And so, and for for nothing, for a couple of dollars on a Facebook ad, type of situation, it's can really, see a lot more results from the same type of marketing.
I have a question, Jason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you get more results with the a text ad? Like when you do a call text, do you get a lot of replies with people that want to text versus a phone call?
And so the people that I'm texting most often are going to be people who are in my sphere. So typically past clients or referrals or something like that. I typically do get a lot of, good responses. And the big thing about text messages is you're just trying to remind people who you are and what you do as far as that goes. So I'm not always necessarily texting people something directly about their situation, but just even general text, reminding people of what they're doing actively keeps you top of mind for them. And so, when they're at the grocery store talking to a friend or neighbor or something like that, and they start talking about real estate because you've sent that text, generic, specific, whatever it may be, you're at least top of mind and hopefully, the referring agent for something like that. Right now, besides Zillow, Facebook is absolutely one of my other top sources. And there's a lot of people who are inquiring through Facebook marketplaces and that type of thing. And so even if you don't have listings, new listings that come onto the market, you could be reaching out to listing agents and asking, hey, can I have permission to advertise your listing on Facebook Marketplace? And a lot of agents are not doing it. They put it in the MLS. They have their own, personal websites and things like that go out to their clients. But the more marketing that they can get on their listing, they're typically appreciative of. And the big box ones, Century 21s, Prudentials, or Coldwell Bankers, they're not going to be as giving, but there's a lot of independent brokers and agents who don't mind additional advertising of their properties, especially if they're primarily a listing agent, because they just want a buyer to overall get it done, and I'll take those buyer leads all day long. So.
Right. So you prefer marketplace over posting in groups on Facebook?
I do both, and so typically, you post one listing into a particular group, Wildemar Exchange, No Rules, Marietta Exchanges, whatever it may be. After you complete the marketing of that one particular ad, Facebook pops up, hey, you're part of these 50 other Facebook groups, including Marketplace. And so for just checking the additional boxes down the row, you're posting it in all these additional marketplaces, including Facebook Market. And then it goes out to the local people, plus the people who are just doing random searches in the marketplace.
One more question. Sorry. How many times a week do you do each of those?
So the homes on Facebook Marketplace and those types of things, they typically expire after 1 week. And right now we're in a market that the homes that I post today are gone next week. And so I'm typically doing it weekly, and I hope to have at least 2 or 3 properties. And, and I search, I look for the ones with the pretty pictures in the areas that I want to work, and that are at an affordable price point that more people want to reach out about that type of thing. And so it's more, and then, come that week, I just, you mark it sold and it disappears from all the different sites, and then I have a new property to list, and then I get new ads for that property.
All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And there's not anything holding you back from marketing multiple properties, So, Mark, you, for instance, if you reached out to 5 different independent brokers or what have you, and they agreed to say, yeah, feel free to market my stuff, and you post one on Monday and you post a different house on Tuesday and a different house on Wednesday, et cetera, you're not just recirculating the same exact posting.
Right.
Therefore, it's not as spammy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you're right. You don't want to just be doing the same property over and over and over again. And so, one, especially in this market, usually that property's not even there as far as that goes.
Right.
But, every once in a while you'll get a property where you just get a ton of leads on, like that one just hit home for a lot of people who happen to be looking. And so, but marketing properties that aren't available, typically once they know it's not available, the lead goes very cold very quickly. And so you want to try to be actively, you're keeping up on it just barely ahead of it going pending, because this one's gone, but I have another one that's ready. So
Okay.
And how you put your verbiage in your posting, it means everything as well, right? So one, use open-ended type of stuff so that, you're not just stating something, you're specifying that you have a type of house, et cetera, and it makes somebody want to leave a comment and ask a question, right? And then 2, the last line should always list, if you like this one, we offer other houses as well, right? Something of that line to make it alert to, oh, you have other stuff. So if I see a 3-bedroom, 2-bath in a particular area and I'm like, it's not quite what I'm looking for, but I say you have other stuff, I may be likely to leave a comment or message you directly.
Sounds good.
All right, anything else? We definitely went over our time today. We like to keep these about 45 minutes, but it was good dialogue. So hopefully you guys got some value out of it. It's a little different approach to what we normally do on our Zoom and Learns. So if you did, great. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you did like. Let us know if there's a specific topic that you would like to have us cover on our Zoom and Learns on Wednesday. And Annie and I will be more than happy of putting something together to cover that topic.
I was thinking the realist tax that that tells about the property,
Yep.
the taxes, the assessment, that one.
Mm-hmm.
Like the chain of where it shows the sales history.
Right.
Like that was funny the other day. One was in trust, one wasn't. It was back and forth. And I'm like,
well, realist goes down usually on the weekends because they do their updates on the weekends and stuff, which is when the agents need it most. But you can always still find all that information on my site as well, Brenda.
oh, that's great. I can get I can get a copy of the trust deed on your site too, right?
You can get the tax sheet, the special assessments, the transaction history, all that on my site as well. Yep.
All right, thanks. I forgot.
Yeah, no, I get calls on the weekend a lot. Realist tax down, I need a tax sheet, et cetera, et cetera. And you can pull it right from your mobile phone as well. So, all right. All right, guys. Well, thank you for your time. We're grateful that you took time out of your day to come and hopefully learn something. Hopefully it was valuable. Jason, thank you for taking the time out of your day. I know you're busy, and we're always grateful when somebody who is out there producing takes the time to come and share what they're doing, things they're doing, tips and tactics, things like that. So we thank you for taking the time out of your day today to be with us.
Thanks.
No, absolutely. I love doing it. I'm hoping that you guys all get a lot of listings because I'll be calling with buyers, and hopefully you remember this.
Right? Now,
Thank you,
remember,
Jason.
Jason likes the Lake Elsinore area, the Wildemar area, that area there. So if you have listings in that area, you definitely want to reach out to him, see if he has buyers.
Thank you so much. And we do have a listing coming up in Lake Elsinore.
Oh, Tracy, you do?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
All right. Could I get your number and maybe afterwards I'll pick your brain about it?
Sure.
All right. Give me just a second. All right. I got a pen. I'm ready.